Welcome back to Breakfast. In a bid to help out the thousands of Kiwis who can't afford to buy a home, a housing affordability report goes before Cabinet today to be signed off. Included are major changes to the Resource Management Act, freeing up land for property developers to build more houses. But aren't there more reasons than that housing is so expensive than RMA? And isn't this putting too much onus on local councils? Prime Minister John Key is with us. Good morning.
Morning, Petra.
Can you give us any details on how we can get this situation under control?
Well, I can give you some hope, I think, that we can ensure that houses are more affordable in the future. I mean, one thing the government can do, and we have been doing, is manage our finances well, because in the end, one of the biggest determining factors of whether you can afford to either save for a house or ultimately pay your mortgage is interest rates. And we've got interest rates on very low levels, and that's good.
Can we talk specifically, though, about affordability of houses?
Sure.
We're talking about new tools for councils.
Yeah.
What are these new tools?
Well, what we're saying is there's a supply and demand issue, particularly in places like Auckland, where you've got a lot of external and internal migration moving to Auckland. So the sorts of things the Productivity Commission's talking about and the government's going to adopt is how do we speed up the supply of land? So that's both what we call greenfields, paddocks sitting out there that you extend the urban limit, and secondly brownfield development. So that's where you don't have a lot of intensification in a certain area, but you allow that to happen more quickly.
So if you're speeding up those processes, how do you do that and maintain the standard? Because obviously people remember leaky homes.
Sure.
We want good standards, but fast processing.
Yes. Well, that's because when you go and get an RMA consent at the moment, often you've got to go through an arduous process. It takes a very long period of time. Now, in the end, someone pays for that, and that is the consumer. So I think there's no doubt that speeding up the RMA consenting process, fast-tracking it, making it easier, making sure, well, you can do a lot of things with councils around making sure it's a permitted activity, for instance. All of those things, that will help at least increase the supply of land. So that's one thing. The second thing is making sure that we are funding the infrastructure, or at least infrastructure is being funded in those new areas, because again, that holds things back. I think there's more we can do with the building companies, working with them. So, I mean, look, there's no one silver bullet. We're not arguing that house prices will all of a sudden fall overnight as a result of what we're doing. And in fact, slow appreciation of houses is quite a good thing. It's when you get these rapid booms up that you then get a credit boom what we had back in 2008.
There's been talk about collective goodwill, the fact that this is important for the country, that we need this situation. We need more people to own their homes, and we need house prices not to collapse and not to boom. So is there this sense of goodwill from developers, from councils, or is government sort of coming into conflict with councils, and councils don't want to be told what to do?
I think councils would argue they have to apply the Resource Management Act as it's prescribed in the law, and so the government can go and change the Resource Management Act, and that's one of the things that we're proposing to do. So there is things that we can do there. I think developers do, ultimately, they want to develop properties, they want to get things out of the ground, that's how they make money. So we do need to work with them. I mean, there's, as I said, a lot of different things, but I mean, if you think about it, we're a property-owning democracy. We're based on the view that people want to own a home. That's generally what they want to do. I mean, one thing we won't be proposing, that the Labour Party will no doubt be on your screens talking about tonight, is a capital gains tax. Capital gains taxes do not work. For a start off, the one that Labour's proposing excludes 3/4 of all housing. So what it encourages people to do is buy big houses in Parnell and Remuera and ditch their beach house, because that would be, the beach house would be included and the home in Parnell would be excluded.
There's already a criticism of tinkering. What are the bold moves being taken here?
Well, some of this is, can be quite bold. Once you start getting into saying you're fast-tracking the development of land and allowing that to be redeveloped quite quickly, that can be reasonably bold. And there's no simple solutions. Every country's tried different things, from first home buyers grants. We've also this has got to be seen coupled with the rest of the work we've been doing around the building and contracting and the various different changes we've made there.
Can we talk about this $2 billion in accommodation supplements?
Yeah.
There's talk of why not make it a government subsidy?
Yeah, so the government, one of the things that's not very well understood is the government pays away a lot of money to assist people and it's low to middle income people, but largely lower income people, into homes. So we do that through both state housing and we do that through income related rents, and we do it through accommodation supplements. And one of the arguments around accommodation supplements is whether they're just really lining the pockets of landlords and essentially pushing up prices because they effectively know the government will step in and pay. pay. Again, there's no easy answer there, but we, as a government, have $15 billion worth of what we call Housing New Zealand stock.
So is it worth looking at that? Is it worth looking at, instead of paying people's rent, potentially paying their mortgage or a gift to first home buyers?
Generally speaking, I was a bit of a fan of first home buyers grants. There's a bit of a feeling that they might bring forward the demand to buy because it assists people to have their mortgage or their deposit paid, and then over time it causes other issues. So probably we're not going to go there. But having a look at these sort of wider payments and seeing whether they're the most effective. For instance, income-related rents can only be paid effective if you're in the state house. So it's sort of very binary. It's very black and white. If you get in one, you get income-related rents. But if you go to a private landlord, you don't get that. So looking at how that social housing area can develop and whether there are other players who can get involved as well as just the government's an interesting place to look.
Peter Williams thinks we should be sending people down south to Invercargill, to the regions.
Yep, well, moving people around the country makes a lot of sense, and you naturally do get a bit of that. So yes, while a lot of migration is to Auckland, you will get people going to Napier or Hastings or wherever it might be, because the population supply there is consistent. People stay there and they're loyal and they work out.
All right. Prime Minister John Key, thank you for
Thanks very much.
discussion.